Well, federal investigators, meantime, switching gears. They plan to interview the engineer of a New Jersey transit train that crashed into Hoboken Station yesterday morning, killing a young mother and injuring more than 100 other people at the height of the morning rush hour. Investigators recovered one of the train's black boxes, and they will examine it today to learn about the train's speed and braking. What they do know is that it came in too fast, plowing through bumpers at the end of the track and into the waiting area, collapsing part of the roof. Authorities say that 34-year-old Fabiola DeCrune had just dropped off her baby at daycare, and she was rushing to catch a train when she was killed by falling debris. John Hiatt is a railroad investigator for Bremseth Law Firm, and he joins us now with some more information. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Good morning.
First of all, I want to talk about the black box that has been recovered. If you can tell us what they hope to learn from that. And then I understand there's a second black box that they have yet to be able to recover because of the conditions are still unsafe.
Yeah, the black box it's known as an event recorder. It's very much like a black box on an airplane, but it has a lot less functioning capacity. But it will indicate whether the engineer was attentive at the time in operating the brakes or operating the throttle. It will indicate a lot of things, the brake applications and the throttle applications, and whatever information that they gather from that will be very important as far as dictating which direction the investigation goes.
Yeah, we've heard a lot since yesterday about this PTC. Do you think that that would have prevented this crash? And explain to us a little bit how that would have benefited in this case.
Well, not knowing all the circumstances, I mean, 99% of the time in an accident like this, positive train control would have prevented it. It would have overridden the, in this case, which could have been an incapacitated engineer. Of course, we don't know that yet. But yes, positive train control, and in the fifth busiest terminal in the country, to not have positive train control to protect the 250 passengers on that train seems to me to be a bit ludicrous. And you know, the fault falls right at the feet of our Congress. They've been trying to implement this for 40 years plus, and it's still laying there.
Right. They had set a deadline for 2015, and then they extended that to 2018. And the NTSB says over the past 20 years that the positive train control, the lack of it was a contributing factor in at least 25 crashes. So how long would it take to get this put into place? Well,
it's all about the money. It always is. And I suppose if they're doing some bean counting, then maybe the cost of implementing this program is much greater than the cost of paying for these types of incidents and accidents, and which is really a negligible way of looking at things. And I would really urge them to spend the money, do this, fix our nation's railroads. This is not right. This is preventable is the word you're going to hear now for the next week regarding this story. And well, preventable is a bad word if you've lost a loved one.
Even without the positive train control, though, there have been some safeguards put into place. I understand that New Jersey trains like this one that was involved in the crash have an alert system in place. Is that correct? And do we know that if it was working on this particular train? It's
and I don't know for sure. Yeah, it is. And what it does is if you touch something every 15 seconds or so, it resets the alerter system. If you don't touch something, it starts applying the brakes and it takes control of the train, stops the train. And I do believe that this train had an alerter system, but an alerter system, it may be incapacitated. For instance, if the engineer slouches over the controls and loses control of his train, he's still having contact, and it would keep the train in motion. Another thing to consider, which I haven't heard them talk about, is the engineer on this train was operating the power from the other end. He was on the lead end, and the engine was on the opposite end. How do we know if that signal wasn't being accepted properly and perhaps the remote didn't respond properly? There's just a lot of things that we don't know, and it's all speculation until the NTSB gets in there and does their job.
Well, we do know that one young mother is dead and over 100 others were injured in a very scary situation yesterday. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me.